Oh, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Silver Tent TV. I'm your host, Siobhan Riordan, and my beloved dog is here, Elsa, who may occasionally join in, but we'll keep going even if she does. I'm delighted today to be joined by nutritional therapist and kinesiologist Carol Lee. A very warm welcome to you, Carol. Carol and I share a passion, which is about the role of food as medicine, and the power of understanding the food that we put into our body, and the healing effect it can have, and the way it can help to promote and sustain health. And we're going to begin a series of interviews over the next couple of weeks, looking at the power of the three brains. Now, this idea first came to me when I actually heard about an Aboriginal spiritual teaching, which talked about the three brains in the human body. And we normally think, obviously, in terms of one brain, but I'm just going to read a little definition for you of what a brain is. So a brain is when has its own intrinsic nervous system. It's a part of the body that has neurons. It's a part of the body that has a whole range of capabilities in order to do complex adaptive processes. It can take on information, it can process it, it can store it, it can change and adapt. Basically, if it learns, then it's a brain. And we have three of those in our human body. We have the gut, we have the heart, and we obviously have the brain in the head. So we're going to be exploring the relationship between these three brains. And today we're going to begin with spilling our guts on the gut. So Carol, I wanted to start off by asking you, why is the gut so important, and why are we beginning there?
Excuse me. First of all, the gut, the health of the gut and the balance of the good bacteria with the less good bacteria in the brain is absolutely crucial to the health of the rest of our body. So I see it as a bit like a balanced compost heap. When you've got a balance between the good bacteria and the less healthy bacteria, you can have a really healthy soil in your body. So that's a way I like to sort of describe it.
Okay, and what happens if you don't have that healthy balance?
Well, if you don't have a healthy balance, then it's going to compromise your immune system, because 80% of our immune system, when it's healthy, is in our gut. It's going to compromise the production of neurotransmitters, particularly dopamine and serotonin. Now, dopamine is all around reward and motivation and feedback. And then serotonin is what makes our rhythms happen. So it's about hunger, it's about sleep, it's about our healthy, good mood and good mental well-being. So about 80 to 90% of those neurotransmitters are produced in the gut. So this is why they're really, really coming to realise that our mental health is completely linked to the health of our gut.
Wow. So that balance is the critical feature. So how do we go about establishing that balance and maintaining it?
Okay, so it's important to realise that when we're born, when we grow inside our mother's womb, our gut is sterile. There's nothing in our gut. And we get our first bit, if we were born vaginally, then we get our first bit of gut bacteria to start growing that through that vaginal passage, through whatever our mother has in her internal bacterial environment. Then that is then nourished through the breast milk, and that has got prebiotics in the. They found there's prebiotic elements in breast milk that enable that gut then to develop and grow healthily. And then the health of our gut is then continues to develop completely based on what we eat.
Wow. Okay, so for those that aren't born vaginally through cesarean, they maybe have to work a bit harder to start to develop that healthy gut.
Yeah.
So that's something that newborn mothers with newborn babies that have gone through a cesarean need to consider.
Yeah, and I think a lot of forward-thinking midwives and people who read up on it would make sure they do a swab for the baby's mouth after the birth, so they get that first hit of good bacteria, so they can then learn to culture their own bacteria.
Now, you mentioned something really significant there about prebiotics, and some of us may also have heard the term probiotics. Can we talk a little bit about that?
So, prebiotics, as in before biotics, before life, this is the food that will nourish the bacteria that's already in our gut. So we can choose by what we eat to either nourish the good bacteria or kill the good bacteria. So by eating lots of prebiotic foods, we're actually giving those healthy probiotics something to munch on to really build them up and make them stronger. And this is all plant-based food around fibre. So it's a particular sort of fibre that you find in some veg. So particularly high in prebiotics are things like garlic, leeks, onion, slightly underripe bananas, Jerusalem artichokes. Let me look at my list. Asparagus, some whole barley grain, it's meant to be high, oats, apples, flax seeds. Always soak your flax seeds first, otherwise they come out the other end as they go in. So there's a lot of, so if we can make those foods a big part of everything we eat every day, or include some every day, then we're already starting to nourish whatever healthy bacteria we have in our gut.
Does it make a difference if you cook those vegetables, steam them, or eat them raw? What's best for the gut?
I think most of them, if you lightly cook them.
Okay.
So don't cook them so they're to rags.
All right.
Cook them so some of that fibre maintains some of its integrity, because it's that fibre that they like to eat, and also it creates that, fullness in the bowel as it sweeps through the bowel, also cleaning it as well. So it's good for the gut health in that respect.
Okay.
So light cooking.
Okay, so those are some of the prebiotics that can support our health. This may be a stupid question, but it is something the academic in me always wants to be given with definition. What is a biotic?
Well, I guess it means, because if prebiotic is bio, is life, isn't it?
Ah, okay.
So pre is before.
Yeah.
Bio, life, ic.
And pro-life. Okay, good. So it's a good way of thinking about it, that, we're looking at nurturing and sustaining life.
Yeah. And I think so many people are focused on probiotics, and we can talk about that in a bit, but it's like we can easily help ourselves by eating more of those prebiotics. And if we include some of those every day, that is a natural way for our gut to start rebalancing it if there's any imbalance there.
Okay.
So,
great, thank you. So we've touched on prebiotic, those foods that will help our gut to feed the good life in our gut. So let's move on to probiotics.
Okay, so probiotics are the actual bacteria. They're the actual bacteria that live in the gut. They all have their own individual DNA, which is amazing to think that we are living with all this separate DNA in our body. There's more probiotics in our gut than we have cells in our body. Wow. How amazing is that? That is just really exciting to me. And what they do is because they all have their own DNA, this creates an opportunity for us to diversify and to grow and to co-create with another organism that's giving us more life, if you like. I find that really fascinating.
Absolutely, me too. I hadn't thought of it in that way.
No.
And again, it shows the power of it being a brain, that it's able to adapt and learn and grow and diversify.
Yeah.
And I'm also wondering, is that connection, we have so much sickness and illness in the world. I heard a staggering statistic that the GPs see 1 million patients a day here in the UK. And I don't hear anyone asking, well, why are so many people so ill? So it kind of alludes to that if we really want to build that strong immune system, that strong foundation of health, we need to acknowledge and to tend to that diversity in our gut.
No, absolutely. As I said, a healthy gut is the healthy soil, like the healthy soil of the land. And just as you can't, grow crops and grow things in an unhealthy soil, you can't grow and develop and flourish as a human being on any level, physically, emotionally, mentally, if the soil within our gut is unhealthy. You just can't. And unfortunately, and I know this is for our next talk, the world, the Western world is besieged with foods that nourish the unhealthy bacteria in our gut and create that imbalance within the soil of our bodies, and which then leads to a depression in our immune system, a reduction in the amount of serotonin we produce, the amount of dopamine we produce. They're finding endless amount of connections between health and our gut. And as long as we ignore that and continue to nourish the unhealthy aspects of our gut, then our health is never ever going to flourish. We're never ever as in our creative selves, in our spiritual selves, going to ever reach our potential if we don't focus on tending to the health of our gut.
It really is that listening to our gut, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've explored prebiotic. We've identified the significant and amazing diversity and the DNA of the biotics, the good biotics that we need in our gut to be thriving, growing and evolving. So let's move on to probiotics.
Okay. So first of all, before I go into that in detail, just want to say that in a way there's no such thing as a bad probiotic. It's just got too big for its boots, if you like, and it's been allowed to flourish. So a lot of people have heard of Candida.
Yeah.
And people see that as a unhealthy probiotic in the gut. But actually, in a healthy gut, there is always a little bit of Candida there. That is perfectly healthy. What's happened is when it gets out of control and is allowed to overrun the gut, that's when we get all the symptoms of Candida, which is not healthy. That's right. So food that will nourish those probiotics and reseed them, it's like adding bits into the gut that can then grow and form its own colony, if you like. We can get these foods by obviously having probiotic tablets, but I always think if you can do it via food, then that is a much better way of doing it. Your body knows what you're eating. It doesn't have to navigate plastic capsules or gelatin capsules or whatever. The food is going straight into the gut and dealing with it. So the way we can do this is by eating cultured or fermented foods. And every culture on earth has, over history of time, had some sort of fermented or cultured food that it offers its people.
It's like we're kind of going back to kind of the original peoples of the world, and it's touching on the Aboriginals long before science ever came along. There was that intuitive knowledge about how to keep our three brains healthy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think also going back, at the moment we're besieged by antibiotic soap and anti this and anti that. And, you know, in years gone by, you know, blokes would be working in the field, women would be working in the fields, they'd come in, they'd eat their sandwiches, they'd have mud on their hands. They would be that reseeding happening all the time. And now we've become, as a culture, very phobic about dirt and germs. So anyway, going back to cultured and probiotic foods. So I'll list a few that some people may be familiar with. Sauerkraut, obviously of Germanic origin, I believe, is basically pickled cabbage. And when people smell it, they think, oh, has it had vinegar added to it?
Yes.
It's actually just shredded cabbage that's been massaged together, maybe with a few pickling spices and some salt. And then as the water comes out, you know, the cabbage naturally pickles in its own juice.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's so simple and so cheap.
Simple and cheap. I mean, I always send all my clients off to try a bit of sauerkraut. And people say, oh, it's disgusting. I mean, I think it's lovely. It's just like a pickle.
Yeah.
Even if people don't like it, I say, just take it as a medicine. Half a teaspoon a day on the side of your plate, or half a teaspoon down the hatch. You don't have to, you know, go, oh, this is delicious. It's like your body, you know, and that will go straight through the body. That's rich in probiotics, and as soon as it gets into the gut, it will start proliferating and, you know, creating a network. And this also happens with kefir, which is like a bit like natural yogurt plus in terms of it's got about 50 different strains of probiotics, whereas natural yogurt has about 5. And then you've got kombucha, which I know you've got into, haven't you?
I do. I love my kombucha. I'm blessed that I have someone in my local town, market town, that actually ferments their own kombucha. And so we've done a deal. I bring the tea, so it's cheap builder's tea, a bag of sugar, and then nature does its work.
Amazing, isn't it?
It's extraordinary.
And it's such a, I mean, for a long time, I was quite resistant to trying kombucha because it looks a bit weird. The SCOBY on the top sort of looks a bit weird. But actually, I mean, I make mine with lemon green tea. You can make it with different sorts of teas.
Yeah.
And it's so refreshing. And again, you just need a thimbleful.
Yeah.
I always say to people, go slowly. These are powerful. Because I think Dr. McCullough, who's a well-known naturopath, did a test on his probiotic cultures, and he found that 1 teaspoon of this culture was the equivalent of a whole bottle of probiotics.
Wow.
In terms of the numbers you get. So when people say, oh, I've been starting to have my probiotics, I've had a whole glass, but oh my goodness, I'm gassy, I'm sitting on the loo, I say, no, rein it back in, start with a small amount. This is powerful medicine, and then just build it up slowly.
Oh, Carol, I could sit here all day listening to you. It's such a font of wisdom and knowledge for us all. But as I said, this is the first in a whole series. But sadly, I'm going to have to bring it to a close for today. I just want to thank you for all of the knowledge that you share. You inspire me deeply. Every time I encounter you, I walk away with a new understanding and a new awareness about how I can support my body in being healthy.
You're welcome. It's my passion to share.
Wonderful. Look forward to our next meeting. Wherever you are in the world, may your day be filled with sunshine. And if the sun isn't shining, may it still shine in your heart. This is Siobhan Riordan signing out for Silver Tent TV. Thanks so much.